I had never received a phone call so pregnant with emotion before, until a few years ago. So pregnant was this particular phone call, and thick with emotion, that a knife would struggle to cut it. It was my mother on the other side of the phone call. She called me back to the apartment where she was nursing my father. He was fast deteriorating because of cancer. His leg had swollen, couldn't even fit in his trousers. So I rushed back to the apartment. So many questions running in my mind. I had a questionnaire, no one was filling it. What is going on? Why is my mother with so much emotion? Why is my mother so desperate, hopeless? I could feel that. I broke every road rule on that day. I didn't have a seatbelt on. I drove at maximum speeds, almost running over a policeman along the way. But they forgave me because of the urgency of the matter. I got to the apartment. Lo and behold, my father lay there almost in a coma. So you can imagine, firstborn, 14 siblings behind you, the questionnaire is growing. What will happen if my father passes on? Is the mantle on me? Am I going to take care of all 14 siblings? The questions kept growing. So I looked at my mother, and we had no other choice than to take my father to the nearest hospital. We took him down the stairs, almost in a coma, couldn't talk, eyes very dry. I was filled with a bit of fear, but as a firstborn, I had to be strong for my mother's sake. We got to the hospital. He was attended to. My father looked at me, opened his eyes, and said to me, "Lean over." His voice was almost going. The conversation that came thereafter changed my life. Over and above telling me that these were his last moments, these were his last days, he told me 3 things that I live with to this day. Freely he gave me, but freely I give to you. And freely I also give to the rest of the young people that I mentor. My father said to me, number 1, son, success is not an overnight process. Success is hard work. I'd never heard those words before. Yes, I was working hard according to my own definition. But my father said, look, you've got to work hard. You are rewarded in this life, not because you think, but you're rewarded in this life because of the results that you produce. I nodded in agreement. I could identify with that because my father was a hard worker. He built the school that I went to, not because he was talented or gifted or anything like that. He didn't go to university, but because he was somebody who was passionate about building the capacity inside himself to use the gifts and talents embedded inside. He was able, through hard work, to be a plumber, to be a builder, to be a carpenter, to be all these things that we shun to this day. We want to be chemists, we want to be doctors, we want to be lawyers, etc. Not that those are bad, but my father said to me, hard work brings results. Second point he shared with me, very profound. He said to me, success, young man. His voice was very frail. I had to lean over to actually hear him. Success is not just for talkers. Success is not just for thinkers. Young man, success is for implementers. If you can transfer whatever you think about, if you can transfer it into your hands, use your hands to work on the stuff that you've thought about, to bring about solutions that others can benefit from, therein lies your success. I could identify with that. My father was an implementer. He would always work on his ideas. He would always implement everything he thought about. He never left until tomorrow what he could do today. A very good timekeeper. If there's anything he ever learned, it was to keep time. I could identify with that. I assimilated it. I absorbed it. The third thing that he shared with me, very profound. He said to me, son, success is not all these things that most people talk about. It's not houses. It's not cars. It's not all these things. Look at what I've done. With very little resources, I've done something for others. Success comes when you can make a difference or their difference in other people's lives. When you've obtained what you think is success, think about others. Think about your brothers and sisters who are behind you. You have 14 of them, to be exact. I'm sorry, I'm leaving you with a burden on your shoulders. Therein, questionnaire was answered. The burden was on me. I struggled with that thought. It was a bittersweet moment in the sense that, number one, I still could hear my father speak. None of the other siblings were there. So I could get this wisdom from him. He could pass on the heritage, the legacy, onto the firstborn. But it was sad that he had told me before that these were his last moments, that he was going to go, never to return. I struggled with the thought, processing everything he said, assimilating it, and I said, I'm going to do something about this picture. I'm going to do something about the wisdom I've just obtained. I'm not going to be a talker. I'm going to do something. A few days later, he convinced us that he wanted to go to the rural home because he knew he was about to depart from this earth. Drove him to the rural areas. Yes, we had protested, but he insisted he needed to go. A few days later, he passed on, leaving me with these nuggets, these principles, which I share with the public, the young people that I work with. Coming back to town, I realized that a mandate on me. These points were like fire shut up in my bones. I couldn't wait to share with others what my father had told me. But more importantly, I couldn't wait to act on them because that's what he said to me, implement. The first thing I did was to come and set up an organization called the Greatness Factory Trust. The Greatness Factory Trust works with young people in school, out of school. I figured out that through hard work and perseverance, I can make a difference in somebody else's life. Through hard work, I set myself targets. I discovered I had a talent inside me. I introspected, I looked inside me to realize that I had a talent I'd been sitting on for many years. I was a writer, a motivational speaker. I was many things in one. I had to capitalize on those gifts and talents. Never been trained to become a writer. In fact, in school, I was more of a scientist. Taught myself a lot of science subjects. They were all straight A's. Hated literature with a passion. But here I was. I realized my passion is to motivate others. I discovered that I live by one mission statement: to create greatness in others through inspiration. So, on the backdrop of that discovery of my purpose, looked into my inner self, began to write books. Over the last 2 years, I have a target to write 1,000 words every single day, including today. I hit that target. I've published 3 books, phenomenal books, motivational, inspirational, leadership, various topics, and many more are in the pipeline. I have over 15 manuscripts ready to be published. I can publish a book every month for the next 15 months, today. Implementing point number 1, hard work and perseverance. Looking at point number 2, I began to work on every idea that came to mind. I began to make proposals. Yes, not all of them succeeded. Some of them fell on deaf ears. But guess what? I persevered. I worked on point number 3. We said, son, success is not about money. It's about making a difference in other people's lives. That's why the Greatness Factory Trust was born. We so far, as I said, run career conferences, and we do that every year for young people. In the month of November, we went into communities that are disadvantaged. Communities where young people walk down the streets and are faced with different challenges. You can see it in their eyes. You can look through their eyes and see that they are hopeless. They have a feeling that they no longer have the capacity to turn around their own circumstances. So I began to move into a community in my city. I noticed that these young people had gifts and talents they were sitting on. But somebody had to mine that out. Somebody had to expose these jewels. Somebody had to process these jewels so that they benefit not only their families, but they turn around the circumstances of their own community. And as a result, a leadership program was launched by the Greatness Factory Trust. We worked with young people from 18 to 34. We taught them leadership skills, principles of leadership, including the principles my father taught me, because I demanded that I carried from my father. We taught them how to be assertive, how to stand before people and communicate your own vision, how to set goals. Now they've set goals for the next 12 months, which we are monitoring and helping them with. We are guiding others because we want to make an impact in their lives. We are not in this for money. I told them. They would ask me, why are you coming to our community? What's your interest? Are you a politician? Why are you coming here? And I said to them, just as my father told me, I've got to pass on that which I was given. I see now, to this day, the same principles my father passed on to me being passed on to others. I'll give you a typical example. Grace Wagoneka, a young lady, 23 years of age, now doing law at the University of Zimbabwe, came to us. We assisted her to discover a passion and purpose. Grace, to this day, is running a very lucrative organization that works on the issues of the girl child. Did I get any training to run a non-profit organization? No. I just had to step out, be vulnerable, send out proposals to people which didn't even have the NGO lingua. I had to do it. And I had to do something with what I had in my pocket. Where doors were shut, I had to look at the little investment I had because I had a father who cared enough about his community. I had a father who even looked after children, not only the ones that he had, but those from the community. I had a father who in the times of drought, he looked around and people would come and they would get food from our house. A peasant farmer, by the way. The biggest vehicle he had was just a bicycle. You saw that. But guess what? He chose to make a difference. Even to the point of death, he was helping the community, building people's graves, helping people to be laid to rest. That's the legacy of my father. I ask you today, when you think about the wealth of Africa, what comes to mind? Is it the gold that we have in Africa? Is it the diamonds? Natural resources? What is it? Is it agriculture? Is it the good weather we got in Africa? What comes to your mind? Could it be that the wealth of Africa, just like my father says, is inherent, is hidden in the communities we come from? Could it just be that the people who are going to turn around the circumstances of Africa, the fortunes of Africa, are in the communities where we come from? What are we doing about it? It is our moment as Africa to look at ourselves and realize we need to take responsibility for the circumstances that surround Africa's progress. It is our moment to realize that Africa can participate on the global scale only if we can work on our mindset. We have to think possibility to realize possibility. If we can win with our minds, we can win with our hands, because our hands simply copy what our minds would have done. The biggest battle we ever fight as Africans is the battle between our ears. Looking down on ourselves will never add to anything. Looking down on ourselves and having self-pity will never improve Africa, not 1 inch. But we've got to look at what we have. Right here are many gifts and talents. Right across Africa, from Cape to Cairo, are gifts and talents. If only we can look at what we have in our hands and not look at what the other person has got. Because the moment you do that, you devalue what you have in your own hands. You despise the gifts and talents you got. You may not be academic like my father, but guess what? You can build a school. You may not be academic at all, but you can play sport. The biggest people, the people are paid the best in the world sometimes, sports people, arts. These are people, things that we have despised over the years. So it is our moment to rediscover where Africa must go. The destiny of Africa is in our hands. The destiny of Africa is right here. It's in you who is listening right now, right here. Let's think about the 3 things that my father said. Success comes through hard work. It's not an overnight process. If you get it by tomorrow, you may not be ready for it. It will soon disappear. Success comes to those who are not just thinkers. Yes, it's good to think, but go beyond that. Implement everything you think about. But guess what? True success is when you can make a difference in somebody else's life. If you can impact a life, even just one life, with $1, there are many people that are dying just because they didn't have $1 to get to hospital. You can do something with what we have right here, right now. You don't need $1 million to do it. I'm a typical example of that. I've stepped out with what I have, just like my father told me to do and implement the principles he taught me. It is our moment, your moment, to make a difference, the difference for Africa. I thank you.